Did you squeeze? Did you have, just if I may inquire, now you are my spies, did you have a short, what happened yesterday but did you have an interesting debate? Did you squeeze his organs of fertility a little bit or what?
The answer to my question.
You don't talk in his class.
Sorry?
You don't talk.
Yeah, he doesn't let us talk.
I know! That's the Bashir that I love. No? He wanted only written.
No, we submit written questions, he answers.
But then, the last day he will. Because he told me that he did one session, but it took all the time only to answer, I don't know, 8, 9 or 27 or what.
6 or 7 yesterday. Yesterday he answered 6 or 7
But
questions.
there's like 30 now.
Yeah.
Sorry?
There's like 30 questions now.
It's bad for you, I think.
He did mention your question he told us to point out, which was, is the event does it have to be something that afterwards you retroactively
Verifies
show
it.
But he said no, it is the process of the event.
Yeah, but that's the point. What does he mean by process of the event? Because he explicitly says, he emphasizes this all the time, that an event is something momentary, evanescent. And that then the point is fidelity, traces, and so on. You know what I mean? Like, of course there is a process, but my point is precisely how does, this sounds for me too Hegelian to be his position, the idea that, to put it speculatively, the event is nothing but its own process, no? No, he has a gap there. He always emphasizes that event is like a momentary flash, and then you have the problem of fidelity. I don't think he would have accepted. No. Again, let me be very clear. I'm here on his side. I share the same problems in a properly Hegelian way. I think that precisely these oscillations are very productive. I think a theory gets interesting precisely when you are forced to be inconsistent, and you look. I mean, theories which just function smoothly are simply not interesting. The same is when we were talking about it, for example, in cognitivism. I like intelligent cognitivists who admit, there is a deadlock, a problem here, something happens, and then this is on what I focus in the middle chapter of part of that obscenity parallax view, on how all of them had to admit that in order from all this brain neuronal retroaction to get to consciousness, a kind of a magic short circuit should happen, when it appears as if the result, effect, causes its own cause. And it's interesting how totally different authors, they all have recourse to the same metaphor. I think that's where Freud or Hegel should enter. And again, I like, there are intelligent cognitivists who admit this deadlock, because you maybe know the debate between so-called reductionists and the great idealist guy is David Chalmers. The great, who simply thinks that he has a point, but I don't take his point. His position is, to put it very simply, that there is a way, of course, all conscious activities, even the most complex ones, of course you can somehow reduce them to neuronal processes and so on, but his point is very nice. He says the problem is not complexity. He rejects, and I totally agree with him here, the idea that we can have a stupid automatic mechanism as long as the tasks are relatively simple, that you need consciousness with a certain amount of complexity. I don't think this. I think first, if anything, consciousness, as every neurobiologist will tell you, consciousness is an operator of simplification. Consciousness simplifies. And I think if there is my dogma is twin here, and I don't know if they were just flattering me, but when I had a debate, private debate, not big public, with some neurologists, I will be very modest, I don't want to boast too much, they pretend that, I don't know what they were talking after I left, maybe, that jerk, good that we got rid of him, but at least face to face they pretend that they were interested that there is something in it, namely in what? I said that my two basic dogmas are A, that it's not complexity, it's quite the opposite, the simplification. You know, this is what Badiou meant, probably he explained it also to you during his classes, this crucial point, what he calls of le point, the point. You know, you have a complex situation, then at a certain point you should say a decision, yes or no, this brutal reduction. And also, for example, when you have a complex situation, the true work of intelligence is not this, here, me and Badiou, that's our private joke, like to make fun of, unfair a little bit, of Derrida. He says that Derrida's basic dogma is always, oh, but the situation is a little bit more complex, you know, like, it's not like this, it's more, no, of course it's complex, but this is common sense stupidity, how should I put it, no? The act of consciousness is precisely when you have a complex phenomenon, and of course in real life everything is complex, to isolate one feature, to say, but it's really about this. So that again, consciousness is an operator of simplification. All that complexity, your unconscious, not even in the Freudian sense, in the simple sense of, you know, what goes... Sorry?
Non-conscious.
Non-conscious, yes, can do. And second thing, and that's what did interest some brain scientists I spoke with, is my idea is that, I based it on a very simple analogy, that consciousness is at its zero level, it must have emerged as a consciousness of a failure. In the, you know, in a simple sense, you are, for example, writing. You write it automatically. It's totally ingrained into your neuronal reflexes. You don't think about it. When do you become aware of it as such? When something doesn't function. At that point, oh my God, you know, you notice things when they don't function. And my idea was simply to generalize this radically. What if consciousness as such is originally linked to some ultimate failure? Maybe Heideggerians would have said death or some failure, non-functioning and so on. So that again, I want to... because you know why? This is, I think, the only way to avoid one of the good arguments of those who... of Chalmers and those guys who have a very good argument against these people who try to prove that consciousness can be reduced to neural processes. What they prove is, let's say, they take a very complex activity and then they prove it that you can account for this activity at the purely material level of neuronal interaction, whatever, that you can reduce it. But then a question remains. If you can reduce it, why then consciousness at all? You know what I mean? The better you explain complex activities through neuronal mechanism, the more the enigma remains. Why do you need to be aware of it? Why? I mean, why doesn't it simply function as a kind of a complex computer? What is the function of awareness? And I don't think that they usually then, even with Dennett, whom I otherwise appreciate, I don't agree here, he tends to play the card of complexity. Like, when things get complex at a certain level, you simply need some kind of a central agency who introduces order, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that works. Here, again, I have a limited sympathy with, how is the guy called? With Chalmers, who says that, you know, his big argument that the problem is not complexity. The problem is this, how do they call it? The hard problem, raw fact of awareness. Why awareness? In what sense does it help our survival, adaptation to be aware of something? Why cannot okay, it's easy to say. Let me take an example. You can say, my God, I walk around, I become aware of oh my God, I will be evil towards you. It's my nature. Sorry, don't take it personally. I like that Scorpio, you know, who bites the frog in the middle of the stream, even if he will die for it. Let's say I walk on Saas-Fee, I see one of you. My reaction is, let's take a tour so that you don't ask me some stupid questions. Sorry, it's my nature. What I want to say is that, now you will say clearly, my awareness